Hey guys, and welcome back to New Earth Alchemy, where we're trying to be better than the generations that came before us. And I mean that lovingly. They did their best with what they had. They didn't know any better, but now we do. So, today we're going to talk about that phrase, you are what you eat, but we're going to basically not focus on food and turn it into more of, instead of you are what you eat, you are what you consume, and how that affects your mental health, your feelings of purpose and fulfillment, and how it impacts your clarity and focus and achieving your goals, manifesting what you want. Again, we're not focusing on food here, but I may talk about it for a moment because we are a whole individual, and I don't like sectioning things off, even though it's kind of unavoidable to section things off a little bit in order to explain and elaborate and understand, and then bring all of the pieces back to the puzzle as a whole. So if any of that catches your attention, I guess you're in the right place. So if you listened to last week's episode, I covered the concept of the brain attic and how you're always bringing in new information based on the situations and circumstances and interactions that you have with the outside world. And if you're not doing that intentionally and being aware of what you're bringing in, then it happens by default. It's happening no matter what. It's just a matter of, are you controlling it, or are you just letting it do whatever it does and wants to do? But letting it do whatever it wants to do is kind of like having an intern that has no management. Like, you're not supervising them and they're just kind of doing their best and they're not really sure what direction to do, but they're learning as they go and they're figuring it out as they go, but they also may not really care a whole lot. I wouldn't say they don't care. They probably do care a lot. They just, they're a frazzled mess because they're young and they're drowning. And the age of your mental intern that's doing all of this work has absolutely zero anything to do with how physically old you are, by the way. Because if you've never introduced any alternative systems than the default one your brain intern is working with, they don't know that they don't know. They've just been dropped into this company with no direction and told to figure it out. So that's what they're doing. They're figuring it out, but probably not in the best way. It's that whole conscious, subconscious programming that we hear about. So, like we talked about in last week's episode, all of this is coming in no matter what, all the time, by default. What we want to try to do is curate what's coming in, being very intentional with the time and energy that you have each and every day, which sounds like a lot of work, but it's not, because less is more. Less is more, less is more, less is more. This is why I love the concept of minimalism, which I've done episodes on. It's not about deprivation at all. It's weird that people think that. It's not about doing without. It's about being aware of what you're doing with what you have and what's around you. It's like a card game. You've been dealt some cards and we're playing them the best way we can. Slowly, so that we can think about it. We're not rushing into things. Being super intentional with which cards we play and when and how. Because, we only have so much time and energy a day. We only have like 5 cards. I'd say that, especially in the beginning, we only have like maybe 1 to 3 cards to work with. Because the world we have at the moment is by default overwhelming. But that's not underneath now the natural laws and natural world works. It's just that people have created society and culture and essentially gunked up a ton of stuff on top of the natural order of things. So it feels overwhelming. It feels chaotic. It feels like too much. And that's exactly what we're trying to counteract here. We're trying to clean off the gunk so that we can see, because it feels like we're holding 50, 75, maybe even more cards, right? It's an unworkable number. How can you play that many cards? You can't even look at that many cards. But most of the cards that we're holding in our hand are just jokers. They're throwaway cards. They're absolute garbage that we don't even need, don't even want. We're holding them for no reason. But there's so many of them that it's hard to see because they all look different. They don't all look like joker cards. We'd just pull those out pretty quickly, wouldn't we? But they're masquerading as aces and diamonds and kings and queens and jacks. So essentially we have to just get really good at noticing what cards we're holding in our life and which ones are jokers and which ones are aces. And remember, there's only 4 aces in a deck. So how do we figure out which ones to hold and which ones are the jokers? Well, we do that by how they make us feel. We use our emotional guidance system. pick up card by card. And yeah, in the beginning, it's going to be a little bit of work, but also it's not, because less is more. Mindset is everything, so allot yourself a year to go through your deck of cards, you know? We say a year just because it's a time frame that gives us space to breathe, but we keep the mindset that it may not take us that long at all. And it also may take us longer, and that's okay, because, you know, welcome to Earth. We're here until we die, and we have the rest of our lives to work on this. So it's okay, and we're going to be working on this for the rest of our lives. And again, that's not overwhelming. That's just how life works. We're doing a life thing. It's a long-term game. And just like with any game or sport, if you get stressed out and overwhelmed and start panicking and start rushing, then you make mistakes. But if you sit back, you relax, you pay attention, and you just let things unfold in front of you, you can better react consciously, mindfully, intentionally. And the greatest thing about this game is that counterintuitively, less is more. So there's not really anything you have to do other than sit back, relax, and pay attention. I swear. Don't even pick up your deck of cards and start shuffling through and like looking at each one of them. Just sit back, let the cards come to you one by one, as they will, as each situation, circumstance, thing that you interact with unfolds each day. And you look at it. And you know, this may be the people in your life, the relationships you got going on. This may be how you spend your free time. Maybe it's social media or TV or something else, books, recreation, crafts. Food is a big one. It comes around like 3 times a day, which is so obnoxious in my opinion. Your work, stuff at work. Your cards are going to look like everything that is present in your life. And as they arise one by one, you need to look at them and ask yourself, we fixing to get kind of Marie Kondo-y. Does this bring you joy? Does it make you happy? Does it add energy or does it drain energy? Does it support your goals? Does it align with your priorities and with your values? Is it helping you to step into your highest self and be the person that you wish you were? You want to be the one that you are on the inside. You just have to, clear all the gunk out to let them free. Is this a good, supportive playing card that's going to help me win the game? Or is it a gunk joker that I need to throw away? And if it's a gunk joker that needs to be thrown away, all you have to do is begin distancing yourself from it. Start looking around and seeing if there's any other cards that you can replace it with. Because some cards are easy to just throw away and create space around, and then other cards are a little bit stickier, and sometimes it's easier to transition yourself to doing without that card by replacing it with a different card for the time being. And then you can just kind of reevaluate later and see if that's something that you're happy with or if it's something that still needs to be reworked a little bit. Some cards are really hard to get rid of, for sure. But some are easier. So, for example, I used to have this friend who was a strung out, anxious wreck all the time. She was terrified of things like freak accidents and murderers on every corner, and honestly, a lot of stuff that she even knew didn't make a whole lot of sense, but it was in her head all the time, and she couldn't help it. Also, though, all she did was binge true crime podcasts and YouTube videos, watch all the horror movies, read all the scary books, and every time I brought it to her attention, I was like, you are what you consume. Perhaps your anxiety about these things that you were consuming would maybe lessen a little bit if you were to stop consuming them for a while. Maybe go on a little scary horror true crime detox for a bit and see how you feel, if you feel any better. Of course, she insisted that that had nothing to do with any of it, and that she genuinely liked true crime and that kind of stuff. And sure, of course you do. Our brains are literally wired to pay more attention to, be more interested in the things that could hurt us. Because that's what we need to pay attention to, the things that can hurt us. That's how we survive. Our brain is really good at survival. That's why the news and the media focuses on all of the bad things in the world, because that's how they keep their ratings up. If they focused on all the good things, nobody would watch them. Good, happy stuff doesn't activate all of the intoxicating chemicals in our brain, in our body. It activates different ones, for sure, but they're not near as addicting. Because our brain is like, we don't really need to pay attention to the good, happy things. The good, happy things are fine. They're over there. They're good. They're happy. We're not worried about them. They're safe. These insane murder or freak accident things, though, those we should be concerned about those. We should be paying more attention to those. Pay attention to that. We don't want that to happen. Learn all you can about that right there. We need to know all the things about that so that we can try really hard to make sure it doesn't happen to us. Or our children. Oh my gosh, learn all you can about it so that it doesn't happen to our children. Protect, danger. Those are the primary goals of our brain. Which is great. It's done a great job so far at keeping us alive. But do we really need to know all of these? The chances of things like this happening are so few and far between. Should we be aware that they happen? Absolutely. Do we need to thoroughly research all of the cases? Absolutely not. And I get it. I also got on the true crime train there at one point. A couple of times, actually. Not deeply, but enough to where my anxiety was absolutely up, and which is how I figured all of this out. It's intoxicating. It's interesting because we're programmed for it to be. But it is not helpful, and it is the opposite of good mental health directions. And sure, some people can handle it, but if you're here hanging out with me, you're probably not one of them, yeah? We need more rainbows, sunshine, and puppies because, boy, the world is kind of terrifying, and being a human is kind of a nightmare, just in general. But use your own discernment. I am never ever trying to tell you what to do or how to live your life. Just giving some friendly advice because you came here for that, right? This doesn't only apply to true crime, though, let me be clear. That was just an example. It also, I cannot begin to tell you how much I regret watching The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones, and especially the spin-off of Game of Thrones, The House of Dragons. I regret so deeply watching those shows and more because of the trauma that I still carry around today from watching them years ago. I personally pretty well just stick to animation these days because it's the safest for my mental health. It makes me the happiest and all of that. I have enough emotions in real life. I don't need other people's from media and like movies, people that aren't even real in the thing. I really want to see the Hunger Games spinoff, but I'm also really, really afraid to watch the Hunger Games spinoff. Also, like on our social media and stuff, I went to Fall Creek Falls this past week. We were there for 5 days and 6 days. We were there for 6 days, and my phone did not work at all up there, which is crazy because they had Wi-Fi. My laptop would work, which is weird that my laptop would work, but my phone wouldn't. But I completely no social media that entire time, and it was wonderful. Which I've been kind of distancing myself from social media for a while anyway. And yes, that's definitely an awesome thing that I decided to do. But if you're still on social media like most of us are, when you're scrolling, there's these little dots up at the top and in the corner of each post, and you can click on that and it'll say stuff like hide this type of content or unfollow this person. And unfollow doesn't mean unfriend. They have no idea anything's going on. You just if you have somebody or something on your feed that's always giving you, like, always making you feel some type of way, and you're like, ugh, and like, oh, they're doing that thing again, and man, it's like stirring up emotions and energy that you don't like, unfollow them. Curate your feed. We should all be doing that these days because, again, it's all propaganda designed to keep your attention, and they know the psychology. They know it. They've been knowing the psychology on how to get your attention and keep you scrolling, and they don't care what they throw at you. They don't care if it's true. They don't care how it makes you feel or how it affects you and your life and your loved one's life. They just want you to keep scrolling, keep paying attention to them, because your attention is money in their pockets. So curating not only our social media feeds, but curating literally everything in our lives. Meal by meal, making good food choices. Leaning more towards that which makes you feel good and gain energy and happy. But Savannah, I love French fries. I love French fries too, man. They make me happy. But how often you be eating French fries? I'm actually incredibly lucky to have food allergies. It is rare that I can find French fries that I'm not allergic to. And I've never been mad about it. I've never been mad about my food allergies because it forced me to get my food habits under control. I say under control. They were never out of control. I always had an okay diet. Well, once I figured out what that was, because you don't know what you don't know, and we think we know what eating healthy means, but we don't actually know until we start figuring it out. But food is a big subject for everyone, and I told you I was going to try not to talk about it in this episode. But if you want to talk about it with me one-on-one, that's always a available possibility. Just reach out and let me know. Curating your relationships, that's a hard one. That's probably one that you're going to have to work with the distancing and the slowly moving away from type thing. Learning how to be silent and aware is a very powerful tool in relationships, especially with those people who are probably pretty toxic. Sometimes toxic isn't even the word for it. Sometimes it's just they have a programming and they allow that programming to control them, and they're just kind of on autopilot and not really thinking about anything. They're just doing what they've always done because that's easy. Discernment, use discernment. Know the difference between actual toxicity and those that are just kind of asleep and on autopilot, and they don't hear you, they don't see you, not really. Everything's superficial. They don't want to go deeper. Just let these people be. Don't waste your time or energy ever trying to change anyone or get through to people who don't want to be gotten through to. The best thing any of us can ever do is just focus on ourselves and lead by example. If they catch on, great. If they don't, whatever. Focus on you, boo-boo. We could go a whole lot deeper on all of this, from self-care products to environmental factors, be that home, your vehicle. Do you spend a lot of time in that? How's that feel? How's that look on the inside? I wish I knew what song. There's a song. I wish I knew what it was called and who it was by right off the top of my head, and I'm sorry, I don't. It is on my Manifesting Magic playlist, though, if you're familiar with that and how that's a thing. But the line in it that I'm thinking about says, "Wake up in the morning, the first thing on my to-do list is myself." The first thing on my to-do list is me. So you might think I'm crazy when I tell you that my husband and I wash and detail our vehicles at least once every 2 weeks. That's crazy time consuming, isn't it? It's not too terrible bad when you have two people tackling it, but the first thing on our to-do list is ourselves. We spend a lot of time in our vehicles going and doing. When we get in it, we want to be like, this feels good. And that's an energy. That's a environmental energy that sets the pace for, the next thing. It's something you're soaking in. We have curated our life to a lot for that. Again, even the best and the longest of lives are too short. Time is our most valuable resource, and we should never ever freely and easily give it away, especially to that which brings us down and pollutes our own energy, draining it and gunking it up further. Sit down with a piece of paper or, your phone notes app or whatever you like to use, and write down what your priorities are, what your goals are, what your values are. Values. Those are so important. Those are more important than the goals and the priorities. Like, focusing on the values, knowing your values will help you figure out what your priorities and what your goals are. And who you want to be. Who are you? Who are you on the inside without all the gunk? What do you want to learn? What do you want to do? What experiences do you want to have under your belt? Once you know all of those things, it'll be a whole lot easier to curate the rest of your life to be able to chisel out that version of your life. Hop timelines. Focus on the values. Focus on who the best version of you is. Based on what makes you happy, not based on what other people say you should or whatever. And then just sit back and let things begin unfolding and just pay attention. Just pay attention. Be aware. Be conscious. Be mindful. And from there, choose words, choose thoughts, make decisions, all based on that and not by default. And make it easy. If you want it to be easy, it will be easy. If you expect it to be hard, it will be hard. Because we get that, it's the law of attraction, right? It's there to prove us correct no matter what we think. So think easy. Path of least resistance, moment by moment. But good luck. That's enough today to ponder and think about and whatnot. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. You can do that via email or any social media. I'm around. I offer coaching. But until next week, I love you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sticking out to the end. Namaste.